All right, good morning and welcome to our webinar, A Testing Strategy for Healthcare Software. My name is Sarah Lynn Bruner and I will be your host today. And today's presenter is Disha Thakkar. Disha is a Senior Automation Architect for InfoStretch. Disha has held various IT and management roles in banking and engineering industries with experience in business requirement documentation, issue logging, and tracking. She holds an MBA in Information Technology Project Management from Symbiosis International University and a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Computer Science, as well as certification Financial Markets and Commercial Banking.
Thank you, Sarah. Good morning to everyone, and thank you again for joining us. This is the generation wherein, this is the era of technology and digitization. And we, as a techno-savvy patients, we are constantly looking for excellent medical care facility in the real time. But along with that, we are also looking for the healthcare information anywhere, anytime. So these days, we as the patients are always wanted to connect to our healthcare providers, and we also want to share this personal healthcare information with the hospitals, nurse, laboratories, clinicians, to everybody immediately on our fingertips. So with this, let's move on to the agenda for this presentation or for this webinar. So first of all, we will be looking into the healthcare software testing and the compliance that revolves around this healthcare software testing. We'll look into the implications of the regulatory bodies and the compliance agencies on the testing part of the healthcare software or the product. Next, we'll look into the testing strategy and the testing approach for the regulatory compliant or for this healthcare software which is compliant with the regulatory bodies such as HIPAA, HIPAA, meaningful use, PHI compliance, etc. Next, we'll also look at some of our success stories based on the InfoStretch experience and expertise in the testing and the healthcare domain. Lastly, we'll answer all the questions in the Q&A section. So way back in 50s, there was this first wave of IT adoption that happened in the healthcare industry. Now, what this first wave of IT adoption did was, there were many processes in the healthcare systems that were very repetitive, as well as they were very highly standardized. So this first wave of IT adoption tried to automate these repetitive processes. Now, 20 years later, we face the second wave of IT adoption in the healthcare industry. The second wave of IT adoption started to integrate all the standalone disparate systems, and it started to bring this whole end-to-end process into one frame. To give you an example, just take an example of hospital wherein the accounting was talking to HR, and then HR was also talking to the payroll system. What we are looking at today is this is the generation of the third wave of IT adoption. Now, third wave of IT adoption is fully into the digitization of this whole healthcare ecosystem. When we say that we want to digitize this whole ecosystem, we mean that if a patient is entering or if a patient is enrolling themselves into the hospital, so starting from taking the appointment to the lab results in the end, this whole system is being digitized. What it is doing right now is it is bringing into the analytical data. Now, this analytical data is very, very important or the crucial at this point. What we have observed throughout our experience in testing and the healthcare industries, this first wave and the second wave of IT adoption was more or less concentrating on the processes, whereas the third wave of IT adoption that we are looking at right now is focusing more onto the patient. So because of this digitization of healthcare that is going on currently, we have identified in InfoStretch that there will be five main aspects that will be ruling the healthcare, and these five rules will be patient-centric. Now, the first one is the interoperability. It is very, very important that you need to have a seamless interoperability between two disparate systems. Now, consider a situation where a patient is visiting a clinic. Now this patient's information is being recorded into RX norm format. Now the patient is given diagnosis in ICD-10 format, and then a CCD-10 report is being produced at the end of the visit. Just think of the complexity between this different technology standards that comes into picture. So as an application, you need to have a holistic approach towards your healthcare ecosystem, wherein you have a very improved interoperability between different integration of the third-party systems, as well as you are also covering the technology aspects or the technical standards. In addition to this interoperability, currently the government has also passed the MACRA. Now what this MACRA is doing is, it is trying to emphasize, or it is trying to bring three interoperable systems. That is the patient visiting system and the visitor's account. Now these two systems will be brought into one single framework, and then this whole system will be integrated with the payment system. Next is the regulation, security, and the privacy. So when we are talking about the digitization of healthcare to such great extent, there comes the regulatory bodies such as FDA, HIPAA, FMLA, ADA, etc. Now you are talking about a patient whose information is being transmitted over the internet to the cloud, or it is being stored into the smart device, or in some cases it is stored in the medical device. Just think of the security aspects that is covering this information. So you need to have the regulatory as well as the compliance body that will support this whole PHI aspect. Third is the self-health. Now there is this very rising cost of healthcare. Also, you have got a long waiting line for the appointments. So this has resulted into the digitization of this whole ecosystem. We are predicting that there will be, in the near future, there will be healthcare consumers who will be looking into a variety of healthcare providers for their medical needs. And these needs will be created on their own with the digital ecosystems. One such example, if we have to take about, is the telemedicine. So what exactly is telemedicine? So telemedicine is just a digital platform that will connect physicians with the patients remotely, and your patients can provide videos, or they can also send the photos of whatever problems or the disease that they are facing, and in return to that, the physicians will also give them the diagnostics. Next is the very important, that is the cloud and data analytics that will be surrounding the PHI, that is the protected healthcare information. So now your cloud technology will be very instrumental in providing a controlled access to the hospitals as well as to the health network. US Department of Human and Health Services, that is the HHS, they have set out a guidelines for certain cloud service providers. Now these cloud service providers are the famous names such as Amazon Web Services and Microsoft Azure. Now they have to bind, or they have to connect with the HIPAA compliance, and then they have to sign this HIPAA Business Associate Agreement so that they can give the secured ePHI to the healthcare industry, and then this can be accessed over the healthcare network. The last one is the proliferation of IoT wearables. When we talk about the smart device, now smart device has got evolved into the wearables. These days, or in the past few years, we have seen lots and lots of emerging technologies around the IoT with the help of wearables. IoT is Internet of Things. So when the data is generated between these connected devices, this data becomes very important for the healthcare providers to make very accurate and informed decisions about the patients. Now, using this data, healthcare providers can diagnose as well as they can give the cure to the patients. They can give cure to the patients immediately. Also, these wearables are currently used in monitoring the patients in the clinical trials. This is becoming very significant in terms of when clinical trials are not able to be with the study participants 24/7, they can gather all the data that is related to the clinical trials from the wearables, and then this data is put into good use for the compliance portion. So this is the era where we are talking about the patient who is the king for all the solutions. You have to put your patient in the center and you have to devise all of your solutions surrounding it to be successful in providing the solution that patient is looking for. So it becomes very, very crucial for the healthcare organizations to find out different ways of serving them, as well as they have to be made ready to adopt this digitization in the healthcare solutions. But when we are talking of this digital transformations in the healthcare industry, regulatory bodies and compliance agencies come into picture. Now, what these regulatory bodies are doing? They are enabling the patients and the stakeholders to share their personal health information with the trust that this will not get their information being disclosed to the party that is not supposed to be. And then when they are using this digital platform for the healthcare problems, they are blessed with better solution and better usability. So in the interest of time, in this webinar, we'll be focusing more onto FDA and HIPAA compliance, but there are other compliances as well, such as meaningful use stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. For that also, we are offering our services. So just to start with, what FDA is. The FDA is Food and Drug Administration, and it is a US federal agency that is responsible for regulating the drugs, biological products, and the medical devices. For the purpose of this webinar, we'll be concentrating more onto the FDA verification and validation. Now, these guidelines, when we talk about the software aspect of the medical device, it is applicable to the 4 components of the healthcare software. The first is a software that becomes a part, component, or accessory of a medical device. So, take an example. You have a blood glucose monitoring device, and that blood glucose monitoring device is communicating with your mobile application. So that mobile application will become the component of your medical device. Next is the medical device in itself. So your blood glucose device monitoring would also be having some software residing inside it. So that will also come under the purview of FDA VNV. Third is the software that will be used in the production of medical device, which could be a programmable controller or a logic system. And the last is the quality management system that would be implemented at the device manufacturer's unit. Next, if we talk about HIPAA, so what exactly HIPAA is? It is just a set of generally accepted security standards and requirements that are present for protecting the public or for protecting the health information. Now, HIPAA is having 2 titles, Title 1 and Title 2. For this webinar, we'll be concentrating only on Title 2 because it revolves around the security and the privacy aspects of a software. So for that, I have categorized HIPAA security policy into 4 portions. First is the user authentication. So let's take an example. A user who needs to be who is authorized to log in into the healthcare software, only that user can log in. Next is the user authorization. So if a user has logged into it, but there would be some information, only that information should be visible to the user. So in user authorization, you check out that only the particular necessary information is only visible to the user. Third is very important, that is the audit trail. So all the transactions that will happen between your healthcare software that comes under the HIPAA, they all need to be accessed with a proper set of audit trails. And the last one is the data transfer. So you need to ensure the data encryption at all the transfer points that will happen in your healthcare software. So these are some of the testing that we can apply on the healthcare software. Functional testing, being you have to test the functional capabilities of the healthcare applications, which would include all the healthcare workflows across the enterprise level. Next, if you have to talk about the performance, so healthcare providers need to provide the support to the patients 24/7 if they are thinking of the digital platform available to the patients. So you need to ensure that your healthcare software is not down even a single minute in this 24/7. As part of compatibility, you need to check your applications on various mobile platforms, which could be iOS, Android, etc. And if you are talking of the mobile web, then check the applications on multiple browsers. in terms of security testing, most of the healthcare enterprise applications are loaded with very critical personal information that are revolving around the patient's health. So this could include your health records, payment information, account details, and identity details. So due to the incredible sensitivity of this data, security testing at this point is not a luxury, but it has become a necessity for the healthcare applications to be tested. The last one is the external integration. In most of the cases, what will happen is your healthcare software would be definitely talking to the third-party application. So if it involves the payment integration, then it will be talking to banks or the payment gateway. And the example that I gave about the blood glucose monitoring device, in that case, your mobile application or your software is talking to the medical devices. So you need to ensure the whole integration testing between this system. So in this webinar, what we will be doing is we'll showcase some of the testing strategy and process for a healthcare software or the product that is either FDA compliant or HIPAA compliant or any compliant or both of these compliant. Okay, so we have this traditional concept of testing, that your testing needs to be done either whenever you have some development pieces ready with you or once your development cycle is done. So in this case, what happens is your manual testers will start writing test cases, then they will execute the manual testing test cases, and then they will log the defects and analyze the results. After all of this manual testing process is done, then they will freeze your development, and then it will be built and deployed. After this whole development cycle plus your testing cycle and your production cycle gets finished, this is the time when you will start automating. You will start to identify the test cases that you want to automate. You will develop the test scripts and the execution reporting takes place. So as we found out in our polling question that long testing cycle is the thing that is bugging you more when you are testing the healthcare software that is under the compliance, it is because of this reason, or it is because of this approach, that it is taking so much amount of time. Now let's look at the better approach in which you can reduce your long testing cycles. So what we propose is, let's have an agile in-sprint testing concept. Why only to have agile development, but let us also test in an agile way. So what we are proposing is that you conduct your verification and validation activities from the very start of the project. You have identified, or you have written down your manual test cases. At the same time, you identify your test cases that needs to be automated. So just imagine you are developing your application, and in parallel to that, you are also developing your test scripts. Now, both things are done parallelly. So when you are exactly falling into your testing cycle, at that time, what you have to do is just to execute this automated test scripts. So you are in this also you are testing in the testing phase, but it will be very quicker and it will be very faster. And what you are doing is you are testing, you are sprinkling your testing paths at each and every iteration of your project development life cycle. With this, what benefit that you will get out of this is it will increase your quality. It will also shorten your long testing cycle, which has always been the main problem for the healthcare industry, and it will also reduce the possibility of getting the unpleasant surprises in terms of bugs and issues that you will find out in the end of the development life cycle. But how exactly you will implement this whole agile in-sprint testing concept when you are talking about testing your healthcare application or healthcare software that is complying to a very stringent regulatory body? So what will happen is that you first of all just take an example that you are a medical device manufacturer. Now, you being a medical device manufacturer, testing doesn't form a core business or your core part of your organization. So in most of the cases, a medical device manufacturer will take the help of a vendor who is there into the testing, who is there into the test management tool, or who is providing you the tool for your automation. So there will be two tools that you will be looking at. First is the test case automation tool, and another is your test management tool. Your test management tool, based on the compliance says that your test management tool should also be validated and verified. Now, you are a medical device manufacturer who is not able to test their own software, but now they are imposed that they need to test the third-party vendor test management tool. So that is not going to be possible for this device manufacturer. Now, this is the reason that how and what type of tool you are selecting is also very important. In some cases, what happens is what happens is your product or your healthcare software, which is depending on the medical device, gets rejected because your test management tool is not FDA compliant, or it is not following the guidelines that is set down into the FDA. This test management tool also forms a very important role when you have to write down or you have to note down your test cases into this tool. You will be, as the testing company, there will be the test cases that will be written in the test management tool, and then there will be defects that will be logged into the test management tool. It is required that you have to check your requirements versus your designed applications, and when these defects come out, you need to ensure that these defects follow a report that is compliant driven. Now, this compliant-driven reports are too much into the physical paperwork. So what happens is this process becomes very cumbersome and very complex and tedious and error-prone. What we try to do is we try to automate this first to last stage, and using the test automation tool that we have in-house developed, that is the Qmetry automation framework, we try to automate the results that needs to come out in a specific format, that is the FDA or HIPAA format. Also, in some cases, what happens is the test lead who is in charge of your testing, they need to review and be a signing authority, and this will take around approximately, on our experience, it takes around 1 to 2 hours for the test lead to check the 200 page of the test report that comes out every day to sign and get it reviewed. One another aspect of the compliance comes into picture is whenever there is any change in the software, there needs to be taken a validation analysis. Now, this validation analysis is not only placed on the individual change, but it also says that you need to check the impact of this change on the entire software system. So let's take an example. There is a change of one line at one portion or in one feature of your software, then you need to change or you need to validate and verify this change over the whole ecosystem of this testing. So just imagine if you are doing it manually, how much amount of time it will take. Take an example that if 45 test scenarios are to be tested on 7 devices and then you are doing it manually, then it will approximately take around 10 man days to do it. But what if we automate this whole process, that is from identification of your test cases to your maintenance? Then this process you can do this 5 times a week, and each day it will only take 3 to 4 hours just to test this 45 scenarios in the parallel on the 7 devices. So the impact that it will bring when you will bring into the test automation and the quality engineering, it's to the significant level. So let's look at some of the success stories which we have had based on our experience, exposure, and expertise in the testing and the healthcare industry. So the first success story that I'm going to discuss about is a client who is into the digital technology innovation in the healthcare. So they invented this digital medicine, which is an ingestible sensor, and this ingestible sensor is talking to the wearable patch, This wearable patch in turn communicates with the smart device using the BLE or Bluetooth technology to gather all the healthcare related necessary information. Now for this client, we are responsible for performing the testing of the mobile application that is residing on the smart device. Also, we are also responsible for testing the wearable device that is communicating using this BLE technology. Now, this being an ingestible product, this product is FDA approved, and so the software that is revolving around this FDA approved product, it also needs to follow certain steps, rules and guidelines as part of this compliance. So when we started testing for them, based on the FDA rules and regulations, there was a need that we need to record the evidence in terms of what is the test results that we have got against each test case and against each test step. So this was totally a manual process. Now by manual process, what I mean is there was lots and lots of physical paperwork all over. Now this physical papers used to contain the test cases. Then there were test steps under each test case, and then in front of each test case, we need to put down the results that whether that test step has passed or failed along with the screenshot of the analysis. Now this result used to come around, 200 to 250 page report, and each day our team used to take the printout of it. The team lead used to sign each and every page and then scan it and send it over to the client. So what happened is all this test evidence became a very, very tedious task and started to piling up into the complexity of this project. What we did was we found out that FDA is approving the electronic signature. So our team prepared the test automation framework that was based on this Python language. And then at the end of the execution of this test case, one JSON file was being generated that was used to export this test results to Jira. Now in Jira, using the X-ray plugin, this test results that were generated were sent to the device manufacturer, to our client, and then it used to get under the FDA guidelines. This activity reduced our daily manual-oriented tasks drastically, and this whole solution became paperless, and it was much more efficient. Testers started to concentrate more on testing rather than signing and reviewing this physical paperwork that were containing the test results. The next project that we did was for a client who is an American multinational medical device, pharmaceutical and consumer packaged goods manufacturer. Now they had this blood glucose monitoring device. So that was a medical device that was talking to a mobile application sitting on the smart device. So we were part of testing this mobile application which was integrating with this medical device. So as part of our testing strategy, what we had to do was this product, this medical device was FDA as well as it was HIPAA compliant. Now, they had this stringent law about using a specific test management tool as well as a specific test automation framework. As part of the test management tool, we had to use the HPLM tool because HP was able to comply with the guidelines that were set under the FDA as well as set under the HIPAA. Also, our in-house QA automation framework tool that was based on Selenium that was being used to test automate the whole end-to-end solution. The problem here was that there were different levels of reviewing and approval. So the first set of reviewing and approval was was to be performed by the QA team or by the testing team that was implementing. So they had this test set. Now these test sets were containing the test case, test results and the test procedures. What we did was we started to implement the Agile in Sprint testing strategy from the very first day of the software development. Then this all reviewing and approval process was automated so that our testers were able to concentrate more onto the testing, and these results were taken care from the very first day. The client was not able to get or to realize the benefit of the test automation that they had previous to InfoStretch But because we implemented the CI/CD using the Jenkins, this test automation realization came into picture. The third and the last success story that we would like to discuss is about a client who is a leading healthcare provider in America. For them, what we did was, this was not a medical device, or it was not FDA approved healthcare software, but what it was doing was, it was HIPAA compliant. And because it was HIPAA compliant, we had to follow some of the PHI related compliance. We had to perform ADA testing, that is American Disability Act, as part of this PHI compliance. We also, as part of protected health information, we performed entitlement testing. So in entitlement testing, what we did was, we gave some of the user-based control testing, in which we automated this whole testing, in which some of the user data was put into, and based on the combination of the PIN and the combination of the medical record number, if a user has to be given a proper access to a specific information, the user was given that information. So this whole process, or this whole testing process of this entitlement or the user specific control, was done automatically. The key takeaways that I would like to give for this webinar is that compliance forms a very, very important aspect when you talk about the testing in the healthcare industry. And one of the major challenges that is faced by the healthcare organizations is the tedious, cumbersome physical paperwork. With our testing strategy, we try to eliminate this physical paperwork by automating the reporting process in the required format. Now, this results in reduction of the humanly made errors drastically. Also, our testing strategy helps the healthcare software companies to accelerate the testing cycles, and then they allow them to focus more on their core business rather than the testing business. Verification and validation of the software is taken care of using this strategy. With the help of the shift left strategy that we had discussed earlier, our focus on testing becomes very effective and efficient, and then we are quickly able to deliver the testing results in the compliance desired format. Also, we can achieve quality by testing in shortest amount of time, but to achieve the quality at speed when compliance comes into the picture, it becomes very difficult and quite complex to achieve. So this is where we are helping the organizations who are looking for testing the healthcare software with the highest quality in the fastest speed.
And thank you, Disha. And at this time, we would like to get your questions answered. And as a reminder, you can ask at any time the questions in the Q&A window at the center top of your screen. It looks like the first question is, FDA is all about verification and validation of a software. How is verification and validation separately done for healthcare software under FDA? Disha?
Thanks for the question. Now, for the compliance industry, this becomes a very, very important question. If you talk about the general testing world, we normally use verification and validation term interchangeably. But if we go into the integrity of these terms in the compliance industry, verification is testing and confirming that the output of the software in a particular phase of your project development lifecycle is as intended and as desired. So, but however, what validation is doing is, validation checks whether the final software is what was expected in the requirement phase. So the main difference here is verification looks for the intermediate checking of the software, whereas the validation confirms the final software product. So these days, most of the projects that are developed are agile-based projects. So with that, our testing has also become agile. So in the in-sprint testing strategy that I just showcased, what we do is we keep on testing our software for each and every build in this sprint. So we are verifying the software in that one particular phase, as well as part of the validation process, We also check the final software that we have deployed on the server is as per the expectation by checking the requirement versus the final software that is there.
Great, thank you, Disha. And the second question is, what do you cover as part of accessibility testing, ADA, as part of compliance?
Okay, so by ADA it is American Disability Act. So there is also a similar section 508 that talks about the agencies that is needed to provide people with disabilities some equal access to all the electronic information. So as part of accessibility testing that covers the ADA Act, we can perform the voiceover functions as well as the speak selections, as well as the magnification gestures and some of the color contrast and the font selection. So I hope that I have answered that question.
Okay, great, thank you. And another question is, how do you take care of PHI aspect of healthcare software?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question in terms of compliance, because PHI is all about the HIPAA compliance, and PHI is the protected health information. So as part of the HIPAA compliance, you need to ensure that your users' information is secured and you are not disclosing any of your patients' personal and private information to the people who need not be looking at it. So let's take an example. A hospital decides that only your medical staff need to be involved in the care of a patient. So only that person needs to apply to that. So what we do in this case is, we have got a few of the ready-to-use automated test cases for the healthcare software. And as part of that, we take care of the user-controlled access and the access control aspect of this PHI.
Okay, great. And we have another question for you. If you are testing very early and often in sprints, how do you manage the high number of deviations?
Okay, so this is a very, very good question, because generally what happens is, in the strategy that we have discussed, people have this doubt in their mind that it can lead to very, very high cost, because you have to employ most of the people from the very start of the project till the end of the project. But what we forget is, in the long run, if you see, you have got your test automation ready with you as part of your in-sprint testing. So you have already done the automation. In the end, whenever you have to do the testing, you just have to execute this automation. Also, one needs to realize that the bugs that are found at the very later stage of the project development lifecycle are the most costliest to fix. So if you find out the bugs that are there that you can find out in the very early stage of your project development lifecycle, that will save your cost to a very, very high extent. Not only cost, but it will also save your time and effort of your whole team. So in this way, it will be very cost efficient.
Great, thank you, Disha. And another question, can we reach required maturity level in testing healthcare software while considering compliance complexities?
Okay, so I guess by maturity level, we are talking about like different maturity levels in the continuous delivery model, like base level or beginner's level or intermediate or advanced level. So we have categorized, or we have this different maturity model when we talk about the testing industry. So if your healthcare software or if your healthcare company is totally into the manual testing, this is categorized as the base or the entry level of the testing. But if you have quite some amount, like 20–30% of the automation, then you are considered as the beginner. So if you are considering or talking about that kind of maturity level, then it's very, very important for you to reach at the advanced level. And the testing strategy that we have proposed here, that testing strategy can help you to reach to the advanced level of the healthcare software by doing the test automation from the very start of the project development life cycle.
Great, thank you, Disha. And that's all the questions that we have right now. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. You'll receive an email in the next 24 hours with the slide presentation and a link to the webcast replay. And if you have any questions, please contact us at info@infostretch.com or call 1-408-727-1100 to speak with a representative. Thank you so much.